Not on screen. Hello, everybody. Oh, there she is.
You just leaned over to move my monitor. Got me.
Happy to see everybody. And my name's John Marcotte. We're here to talk about Nimona, which is an awesome graphic novel. Here, I have a copy right here. It's our annual book club. I will confess something right off the bat. I have owned this book for 3 years, and I never read it until right now. And here's why. Because it's a guilty nerd thing. It's because I bought it at WonderCon, and Noelle Stevenson had signed it, so I didn't want to break the binding, but then I was too cheap to buy a second copy just to read, so it sat there. And I'm kicking myself because I thought this book was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. What's your top of the head impression of the book? Did you have a good time with it?
Yes, I did. Should we introduce ourselves?
What's that?
Should I introduce myself, or am I?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Vivian.
Okay.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Vivian. I'm John's friend, and I'm co-hosting.
You're more than that. You're also a Disney Imagineer.
I'm a Disney Imagineer and
an animator.
And I guess that's it. I think and those two things.
I think those are the relevant bits. I mean, there's more to you. That's not all you are.
I'm also a sister, and I was trying to think about the other day. I just realized that I've known you, I think, for over 10 years, which is pretty cool.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. Yeah, do the math. It's pretty weird. So yeah, I also heard of this book a while ago from my friend Vanessa Yee, who then she had purchased the comic, and I think she lent it to Juliet, my sister. So I think Juliet has a copy of this right now, and was also saying this was really good. It's kind of a Harry Potter situation where everyone else is reading something and saying how good it is, and I'm like, well, if it's that good, then congratulations. And I didn't get around to reading it as well. So I'm also really happy that I was, I read it. I had never made the connection between the author Noelle Stevenson and She-Ra. So that was very, very subtle, very subtle. Yeah. It'd be cool if I could stand up and the bottom half of my outfit was her outfit, but that's I'm not. I'm just wearing
that's okay.
Pajama pants. But yeah, that the story was actually really surprising. I think the way that it unfolded was really surprising as well. The whole thing was just I don't want to say it was a big shock, but it really it took me off guard, when you see how kind of cute these characters are, that the story goes as dark as it does.
It does. The story does really start one place and then go somewhere completely different. It started out as one of her art school projects. She did a 2-pager, and I think from there it went to a web comic, and then at some point it got picked up and they said, why don't you finalize it into kind of a graphic novel format. So especially at the beginning, you can see those early web comic roots and things because it's very episodic. I mean, it's just a couple pages and it's like little vignettes of their lives together. And then as you travel through, there's more and more. And we should probably kind of set the scene. I'll just saying what the book is basically about. We have our protagonist is the person whose eyes we're seeing through is not Nimona. It is Lord Blackheart, who is a villain in an unnamed kingdom. And he used to be a member of, and I'm going to read it so I get it right, the Institution of Law Enforcement and Heroics, along with his friend, Sir Ambrosius Goldenloin, which is just an awesome name. But there was an accident, or maybe not an accident, where he lost his arm, and there isn't a need for one-armed heroes. They kind of kicked him out, so he decided the only other career option was to become the villain. Basically that was the only other thing he saw that he could do. So Nimona is actually just a girl that shows up one day and says that she's his sidekick and was sent by the agency, which I'd love to explore what agency sends sidekicks over. And she he at first is dismissive of her because she's just a girl, but then it turns out she's a shapeshifter. She can turn into any animal or person, real or imagined, actually just real, that she can think of, and including enormous things like dragons and dinosaurs and everything else. So she comes in and just disrupts everything's life. Up until now, I think it was almost like they were play acting at hero and villain. They didn't, Blackheart has a strict don't kill anyone policy. He talks and meets with his arch nemesis on a regular basis, from what we can see. And they had been going along, and it was almost as if he was just playing the role of the villain in the story without ever really anything happening. Nimona comes in, and she's killing people left and right. And for a while there, it's not clear, like, really who's in charge, if she's the sidekick or if Blackheart has become the sidekick. And then by the end of it, the story is completely focused on Nimona, because the bad guys and Blackheart both have different kind of objectives that they're trying to accomplish with her.
Yes.
And the stakes have been raised considerably, because the good institution is actually evil. That's what we find out as we're going through here. And they have nefarious plans for the populace, which we never quite get fully explained, but they're making basically medieval magical weapons of mass destruction.
Yes. And
then they also want to capture and study Nimona, because she is incredibly powerful in herself. So yeah, that's kind of the arc of the story. And then by the end of it, Nimona has been captured, and then Blackheart is trying to rescue her, but she doesn't trust him, because she feels like she's been betrayed at various times during here. And
well, he takes something that is private between the two of them, and kind of and weaponizes it against her. Right. So I think that's kind of what breaks the trust between them. But I do think that by the end of the story, they do kind of find a way to acknowledge at least a level of trust within one each other, or at least acknowledge that at some point that they do care about each other in some kind of a way.
I mean, even in that moment of betrayal, he was doing it because he thought he was helping her. He was trying to achieve multiple objectives. He didn't want anyone else to die. Nimona was kind of out of control. And he was actually trying to heal her in a way too, kind of reconcile the two halves of her being, bring them back together. But she saw that as a betrayal. There was a MacGuffin in there, a magical doohickey that has no purpose other than it takes Nimona's powers away. And he knew that, and no one else did. And he allowed them to use that to try to slow her down, so he could attempt to bring her back together. She had separated basically into her monster half and her little girl half, and he was trying to put them back together again. And both halves saw this as a betrayal of their trust. So we started out in very kind of a slapsticky vaudeville type of place, and then we ended up in this very kind of heart-wrenching, and people are dying left and right. And the story, even with the kind of tropes of what it started out with, is a much more serious type of story by the end of it. And I'm sure it's intentional. The story is just way too well put together to not be intentional, but I wonder if that was the initial idea when she created the characters, or if this was something that, as she looked into expanding it, if that's the direction she thought would be an interesting way to go.
Well, I think that I did read at one point that when she started it, she was building the story as she went. So I think as she was sort of laying foundations of the world and of the characters, I think there was a lot she knew about the characters, but I think where everything was going was like an authorial journey that she went on.
Right.
To your point about it going from a webcomic to, or like a school project to a webcomic. I think even like before the school project of the webcomic thesis, there was already development of the characters. Like she kind of knew that there was this sort of twisted young girl, and so these people kind of went on these characters went on a journey with her. And you can really see it even in the layout of the early chapters, like probably chapters 1 through maybe 5. They're laid out on a grid, and the most variable that you see in that is going from, it's 3 panels, and then maybe you get like a long shot, for the jousting sequence or something like that to sort of mix it up. But then by the end, I think it's gone. The framing that she uses is so cinematic. By the end, you are having these gorgeous kind of splash frames, and you really get the movement of the characters, emotionality, and the framing. It's really effective.
The early paneling actually reminded me of Watchmen, which is, I don't know if you've ever read the book. Okay, good. So it's considered one of the seminal graphic novels. But the entire book, if you read it, is laid out on a 3x3 grid. It's just 9 panels straight, and the book and Nimona starts out that way, very much so. And then as we go in, and I don't know whether it was confidence in craft or a different direction she decided to go in, her paneling, which is something that people don't always talk about when they're reading graphic novels, the breaking the page up into separate sections for different pieces of art becomes more complex and more interesting as the book moves along. It starts carrying the story more with art than with words, as her art becomes more assured. Does that sound fair to you?
Yeah, definitely. Like could even say that as the story becomes more complicated, as does the paneling, right? And so we, at the beginning, I think we feel like we understand who we're talking about and what we're dealing with. Like you're saying, there is a little bit of a vaudevillian comedic feel to it. Oh, he's the bad guy and he's the good guy, and she's the like rascally kid. And then as those tropes kind of blow apart, you know, and you have to start reframing who you understand these characters to be. You know, you can't, the story doesn't fit in that grid anymore. So I think we can make a point to say that, you know, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
The director, if I could, just like leaping from another topic, her silhouette reminds me a lot of I wish I could remember the character's name, in Lilo and Stitch, which is another story about a weaponized experiment, something that looks lovable but is actually very dangerous. There is a character that has almost the exact same shape language as this woman does, the director, who lives on the spaceship.
Yeah, okay, I remember the character. I think there was the main boss alien, and then it was like his second in command had that same profile. Am I thinking right, or did I have him reversed?
She's
If they had a round body, that was, I thought, the big boss, but maybe I'm getting them mixed up.
There's the no, she's at the very beginning and she pops in at the very end. She's the one who
oh, she's in charge. That's right. They send the round body as sent to recover Stitch. I got it now.
Yes.
It's been a while since I saw Lilo and Stitch, but
this made me want to watch it again, actually.
So you talked a little bit about the art. I'll throw in my 2 cents, although you have already said like 8 times more than I'll ever pull out of a story in terms of art. I thought the use of color palette was really good. She color coded the characters, all the way through. Blackheart is consistently in these darker, more muted tones, browns, grays, blacks, and with a splash of red, which maybe is a hint at his inner heroic nature, or maybe it's just it looks like blood. I don't know. But Golden Heart is fair-haired, and then always in like kind of golden or yellow armor, and and then Nimona herself is pink every time she turns into something, although sometimes in my copy it read a little other colorish, but she was primarily pink the whole way through. They comment on that a couple of times, and then she arbitrarily at some point changes to purple, which I thought was fun. It's just a style choice. She didn't have to be pink. She just liked being pink. So I thought that was cool. I liked the art style, the consistency of the characters. I mean, sometimes when you get someone's first work like this, you'll get kind of character drift as they move along, as they settle into what the characters are going to look like. I didn't find a bunch of drift on this. They looked about the same at the end as they did at the beginning, which is actually kind of impressive for somebody's like first real big project. I thought that was cool. And, for myself, I grew up on these superhero comic books, and so this kind of art is not what I grew up looking at. Everything was very representational. If it was cartooned, it was in the way to exaggerate muscles and action and things like that. It wasn't. So you always thought this is real. This is how Wolverine's just how a guy would look if he had metal claws for hands. And so I think that 12-year-old me or something would have looked at this and went, it's for kids, because it's so simple. But as an adult, I appreciate so much more breaking out of that mold and not feeling like you're restricted into like the Jack Kirby school of thought on what character design has to be, and what at the time back then would have been called more experimental, but now is actually pretty common. Just giving us a non-representational character. It's not supposed to look real. It's intentionally looking like a cartoon, and it lets you bring a whole different set of values to the book, as far as emotive expression and things like that. I like it. I really dug the art in this one.
Yeah, there was definitely agree with you 100% on how consistent the style was. I did go back and look at some of her fan art that she does. Like this is her hand.
Right.
So it wasn't even necessarily we're not looking at any kind of experimentation. Like we're looking
Right.
at like this is her, same as it's the characters over her voice, like her artwork, like that was her hand.
Right.
There's a couple other artists I know that are sort of in this, it's almost like a subset of Japanese manga where, for that you would see kind of almost in like the early 80s or the late 80s, where things can get very gooey and dot-eyed, like, the way
Right.
that they sort of express on the face,
Oh yeah,
where it doesn't a lot of this,
a
but
lot of
like
the
also kind of like shading things in the way that they pose to show that their feelings are hurt or that they're hiding something. That
right.
kind of that shorthanded language I did see coming from there. One of the things I really loved about the way that she draws, I wish I was upstairs and I had the blackboard with me and I could express this to you more clearly, but
Right.
she draws with a lot of volume.
Right.
So you can tell that she can take these characters and rotate them, right? They're
Right.
not super flat. So even if you were doing something in a Jack Kirby kind of a way,
Right.
you can sometimes when you look at those drawings, you know that they can't turn because the way that everything fits together doesn't actually make sense.
Yeah, wouldn't read from the side if you kept it the
It
same.
would not read
Yeah.
for like some of
Yeah.
those Wolverine poses. If you turned
Yeah.
them, you know that his model is broken, to use the
Yeah.
animation term. But with her characters, there is actually an anatomy
Right.
inside all of them. You can see her weight, you can see, where her bones are, and you can see a logic to, when her head and her body turn, and it makes everything that she draws so expressive.
Right.
And it communicates so much. And not only that, but even with what she does with the color palette and perspective, it gives so much more to what you're looking at than if it was just like, oh yeah, like it's just, she
Right.
runs by. The sense of perspective adds so much. It's so cinematic,
Right.
what you're looking at.
And I think that might be a good time to mention that Nimona is going to be a movie. 20th Century Fox is making a Nimona movie. It's coming out in 2022. It was supposed to come out this year. It got bumped once, and I'm sure because of COVID reasons, it got bumped again. I'm just happy it's getting made, and hopefully that manages to get a theater release by then, because I really want to go back to the movies. What I really want right now is for Dr. Fauci to come out on television and say, you can go see Wonder Woman. It's okay. He has not done this yet. So I might have to subscribe to whatever HBO Max or something just to get my Diana fix. But this is a movie that I want to see on the big screen. I want the theaters to do okay, but I can't. All right,
I had
sorry.
the terrible. I had this to add to your sidebar. Like the last thing I did see on a big screen at a drive-in was New Mutants, and that was the sound I made.
Yeah,
like that.
I couldn't decide what it wanted to be.
No, well, to me, and I'm going to tie this back to Nimona, I promise, it seemed like it was trying to do something, but it was being reined in.
Right.
I'm not going to go into detail about that because I don't want to get in trouble, but I fear this delay in Nimona and the content of Nimona could be due to it being reined in. Am I
That would be unfortunate. It is the kind of book that, looks very kind of cartoony, kid friendly on the surface. And then, about a third of the way in, after she's like dismembering the 20th guard, you go, man, this is kind of brutally violent in parts. And
it's brutally violent. It's anti-establishment.
Yeah.
It questions, systems of government, systems of, what we would call like a war industrial complex.
Right.
So that's kind of something that 20th Century Fox is now a subsidiary of other companies. So
right. Oh yeah, that's true.
So I think that there could be a little bit of push and pull as to the content even.
Right.
Because
like Disney has all the Marvel properties. Now they finally have them pretty much, I think, all under one roof. I think Namor is still floating over at Universal along with the Hulk, at least a co-ownership thing, and Spider-Man, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But 20th Century Fox had the X-Men properties, which was kind of up and down all the way through as far as the quality was concerned. But their best work by far was Logan and then Deadpool. Those were by far their two biggest hits, both rated R movies. It is hard to see, Disney has completely shied away from making their heroes this kind of dark and gritty. They've not done it. It can be done well, but is it something Disney wants to do? I'm not positive it is. I'm really curious what they're going to do with Deadpool. Jackman's done, so they can reboot Wolverine and go any direction they want to. But Deadpool, it would be hard to walk away and say we're not making another Deadpool movie. But on the other hand, are they going to kill the goose that lays the golden eggs by making it be a PG version of Deadpool? I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yes, and I am not here speaking with you in any capacity as a Disney employee, so This is my opinion as a civilian artist.
Gotcha. We're not going to get you in trouble, I promise.
But that was my when I saw the delay, because I also caught that 1 year delay. I thought, oh, COVID, and then I thought, oh, New Mutants.
Yeah. New Mutants was delayed multiple times even before Disney picked up 20th Century Fox. They obviously knew they had structural problems, and at some point they just decided we got to get it out the door. Let's clear the slate for the Disney stuff. So I think that's what they were doing. Let's
talk about structure. I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you think Nimona is the main character of the story?
No. My feeling is Blackheart is. He's the one that has more of an arc of any sort. We see the story through his eyes. Mm-hmm. I think Nimona almost functions like the Joker in The Dark Knight Returns. In some ways, we get several versions of her backstory, and which one is actually accurate. There's theories floated. We see one little flashpoint that probably is true, but she tells him one story. He theorizes she may have been experimented on. That seems like it might have been true too. And then she has a flashback at one point. I think that's the one solidly true thing we can see that's different than either of those two theories. But she's a force of nature that comes and upends their world. You talked about the, being anti-establishment, anti-institution. Blackheart and Golden Loin they live by rules defined by their roles. He's a villain, he's a hero, and he lives by his own code. And they're basically playing out the roles, I think, kind of the way that the institution wants them to. This is just a puppet show to entertain the masses. It's a sideshow. It's not really going anywhere. Nimona comes in and really starts executing the villain thing at a level that Blackheart had not been up until now. And that she's an agent of chaos. She doesn't believe in rules at all, and that flips everything upside down and makes actually something happen rather than this kind of static back and forth pretend play punching that was happening before this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what the two characters, Ballister and I'm just going to call him Golden Loin because I'm afraid I'm going to mispronounce Ambrosius.
Ambrosius, yeah. That's a real name. I looked it up. Spell check liked it. All right.
Okay.
I thought that was made up.
Well, I was thinking about their names, right? And they do both have spectacular names for their roles. And so I thought it was interesting that even in their flashbacks, a Ballister, it's like a crossbow.
Right.
And when I was thinking Ambrosius, I was thinking ambrosia. I was thinking like, nectar of the gods type of a thing. But then, after I read more about his character, I was thinking more about that fruit and marshmallow dessert.
Oh, yeah, the ambrosia salad with
because he's
Cool Whip and marshmallows.
Cool Whip.
Yeah. Cool Whip.
Cool Whip. So I kind of was wondering, I think she really did some interesting things with the names. Of course, Nimona. No, last name redacted. We don't know her backstory.
No. Her name doesn't give anything away, whereas the other two tells them who they are. Because Nimona is, again, agent of chaos. We don't know.
Agent of chaos. I also thought it was interesting. I also thought it was interesting that even in her own flashback backstory, it wasn't fully from her perspective.
Right.
We started with two other characters who I don't know if we know who those characters are. Approaching her, talking about her, and talking about what might have happened. And then we do get a couple of scenes that are, or not even scenes, they are still images with no context of what she experienced, but it still doesn't tell you how, why, who, what, what is she? What did that myth that
So
Yes.
we get these multiple. I made a list of the different things that we get floated that might be her story. The first story she tells is that she was 6 years old and she found a witch in the forest that had fallen down in a hole. And in exchange for helping the witch get out, the witch gave her the power to turn into a dragon so that she could save her village from raiders. And so that's the story. And then she got stuck as the dragon, realized no one could talk to her and she couldn't really help. So she went in the forest and practiced till she could turn into anything, came back, and then the raiders had already killed everyone in her village. That's the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then a little bit later on, Blackheart, in a private moment, not with her present, he infers that she may have been experimented on, that she was a normal shapeshifter that someone experimented on. And then at another moment, Blackheart is talking to Blitzmeyer, the very Holtzman-esque scientist that they run into. And she tells him the story of this knight that went and fought a shapeshifter, much like Nimona, and was sent to kill this, and came back and said that the shapeshifter was dead. But conspiracy theorists said that the shapeshifter had actually taken the knight's form and had come back that way. So that's another possible place that Nimona could have come from. And then we do see this flashback at some point where it isn't from Nimona's point of view, but it's this her as a little girl being captured and not being captured. She's already imprisoned, and something actually, he's feeling something horrific had happened at her village. You wonder if she herself had been able to turn into a dragon and accidentally killed people. We don't know. Something bad happened, and she's being kept in prison, and this is probably leading into her getting experimented on. That was kind of the feeling I got. So we have a couple bits and pieces that don't all quite fit together, but you know, it is kind of what it is.
Yeah, I mean, so another note in here, and actually I think it might be in this panel, that her parents don't even think that she is their baby. They think she might be some sort of a changeling. So again, that lines up with that original myth that there is a monster, there is a knight, and then maybe the knight who survived is actually just the monster, monster imposter. And so is who we're looking at now, is that actually just some sort of iteration of a creature that is now living out another life.
And you know, I meant to mention this earlier, but I think Nimona might be a proxy for the author. I think Noelle Stevenson just physically looks like Nimona. She is queer. I believe she's gay. The like kind of shaved haircut that Nimona sports, I'm pretty sure Noelle Stevenson has had a similar haircut at different times. And you know, it was just a odd feeling. I think she was drawing a book and saying, "This is who I'd like to be in this story." Is this? At least I think it started that way. You know, before Nimona became fully her own character. This, when she was still the plucky sidekick that caused trouble for people, I think that might have been a little projection from Noelle Stevenson, who then fleshed out the character more in other directions.
Maybe so. I understand that she is also living with bipolar disorder, so that would definitely add another element to a character who can physically split themselves and have a part of themselves that, you know, maybe emotionally feels out of control. Yeah,
the monster within type thing. There is that whole like kind of, it physically manifests itself at one point by the end of the story when she's been split into two. There is the little girl half and then the out of control raging monster half, and you know, I'm like that. I'm sure that could be an expression of bipolar disease, like Philip K. Dick, you know, and all his, he was schizophrenic, and so all his books have that. Am I human or not? Are there people, you know? That was the kid. That was the manifestation of his schizophrenia. That's, he actually had those thoughts. So when you do a Blade Runner, that's actually kind of a peering into his psyche and his mental illness. He was exploring it in his writing. So yeah, we talked about that. We talked about that.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, no, go ahead.
I wanted to talk about the things that we don't know.
Right.
I thought it was really interesting. I was listening to an interview with the author, and she said that, you know, Nimona has to end. There's really nowhere else it can go. And in my head, I was thinking, but there's so much we don't know. And, you know, and then my fear is that if this ends up in somebody else's hands, they could be like, well, this is the one true answer, and everything is black and white, and these characters all redeem themselves. And one of the things I thought was really interesting, I love stories like this, that it can end with characters being not fully redeemed.
Right.
And not fully understanding their emotional state and then also absolving them of their emotional state when they did certain things, bad things. And also, is the director a goblin? What does that mean? What when Nimona says something like she can only turn into creatures that actually exist, she's definitely turning into some things that I don't think do exist, like shadow monsters. So I don't think any of her rules are real, right? So
no,
in fact,
Nimona does not live in a world of rules. So when she says that rules exist, she's usually lying because she doesn't want to reveal her true self. I think she's afraid that people will be afraid of her. And so she is constantly underselling how powerful she is. And we slowly see as she ramps up and up and up just how incredibly powerful a being she is. And I think that was hidden intentionally at the beginning, both as a story mechanism and because Nimona herself as a character has been hurt by this kind of thing. It looks like multiple times by some of the things that she said where people have tried to help her. She's air quotes basically there, or experiment on her, and she doesn't want any of that. So she's very careful not to show how powerful she is until there's some element of trust, in between people.
Right. Definitely. I think that I was wondering, and again, this is sort of just part of the general mystery that the comic ends on, if she is truly the age that we see her at for most of the story.
Right.
Or is she the age that you see her at the end of the story?
Yeah. She reverts back to the little girl that we saw in the beginning of the story and in the flashback. Is that her actual age now, or did she age and she's reverting back? There's just really no way to tell. And that's one of the things that I thought was interesting about the story. There are so many things that we can't really say for sure what happened or who was right or who was wrong. The entire incident that gave us Blackheart there, it was, he was jousting against Golden Loin, and Golden Loin was given a high-tech souped up lance from the director. So the director was already putting her thumb on the scale for Golden Lance at that point and wanted evidently Golden Lance to kill Blackheart. And so they joust. Blackheart wins because the other lance is too heavy. And then Golden Loin, when he's recounting the story, he says, I don't know what happens, and I must have blacked out, but it must have, I must have hit the button by accident or something. And and he apologizes, which was a huge moment and a kind of a turning point for that character. But I don't think we can say for certain that Blackheart's version of the events are true. I don't think, from what we know of Golden Loin, I'm not positive he would have done that. I have a kind of a feeling that might have been the director or somebody else under her control, making sure that what she wanted to have happen happened when Golden Loin failed. And there are a lot of moments like that where we have these things, and it's kind of hard to say what happened, who was right, who was wrong. And there's that, and then the whole backstory keeps shifting around. And I think in the end, the only kind of truths that come out of everything are the power of forgiveness, because that's what everything kind of hinges on, and the kind of power of loyalty to friends in there. That this loyalty, this bond that Blackheart and Golden Loin share, where they're both trying to make sure that the other one doesn't get killed, even though they're in a fight, and the love that Blackheart develops for Nimona, where he really wants to both make sure that the people around her are safe, but he wants to make her safe too, and he's trying to make her see that she is loved and valued. So at some point you just go, I don't know whether Golden Loin shot him or not. I don't know. And, we're just going to have to accept it and move past it. That was kind of one of the things. You apologize, even though you're not sure exactly what happened. You're sorry for your part in it, and you move forward. And that we saw that happen in a couple different ways in the story. And I think that's how people move forward. I thought it was a neat kind of a subtext to the whole thing.
Yeah, definitely.
The
existing in the gray.
Existing in the gray.
It's so cool.
So yeah, and then there was also the other idea that I thought was there were some parallels between Blackheart and Nimona that I thought strengthened their relationship, and that's the whole idea of we make our own monsters. Blackheart was a hero until he was kind of betrayed and his arm was blown off, and he was literally just became a monster he had a mechanical arm and things like that, so that he fit into that villain role, and he just leaned into the villain role. And then Nimona, we get this feeling that she may have been this innocent creature or innocent little girl that was experimented on and had horrible things done to her. So now she doesn't trust anyone. And that's where her monster comes from, or these awful things that were done between it. And Melissa, I was not going to bring it up because I'm always going, do you think they're gay? But
but are they gay?
I know it. And so I was going to leave it alone. But yeah, do you think they're gay? I do think they were gay. I thought that Blackheart, there was an implication that Blackheart and Golden Loin were lovers at one point. That the director made a comment, and I kind of flipped through looking for it. I couldn't find the page, but said, I know what you two, had done. And I think that there was a hard implication. The way that at different times when one of them's falling, the other one's holding them and things like that is not in a friendly way. It's in a way of a partner, of someone that they love in a romantic way. And I thought that was, again, a way of slipping some of that kind of coding in there. Maybe she felt like it's, in some levels a kid's story, so she didn't want to make it too explicit, but I thought that was a obvious thing that those two were lovers at one point. Did you pick up on that too, or
I thought that was text. I thought it was just straight up in the text. And also I don't think there's anything more. There is, but there shouldn't be anything more subversive about seeing someone being burned alive, rather than two men either sharing a kiss or holding hands or touching each other in some kind of an intimate way to show that they care about each other, right? Helping each other up, or cradling one when they have fallen. But alas, that's where we are.
Yeah, it is where we are.
So it can still be for kids while these guards are being gruesomely mauled by a rhinoceros
or a triceratops at one point, which
the triceratops. But yeah, I think that both Ballister and Golden Loin address this. I think that the epilogue, the happily ever after of them being together and supporting each other, both being damaged, I think that is a sort of a lover's happy ending.
Yeah, I think so too.
After the long lover's quarrel.
It was, I don't think things were perfected, but the peril that they were in and what they went through made them vocally admit how much they cared about one another. And then Blackheart had successfully kind of ripped the mask away from the institution to show how corrupt and evil it was. So that allowed Golden Loin to move past the idea that he was some sort of hero to Blackheart's villain. Those roles got stripped from them, and so they were left basically with friendship and personal quarrels rather than these kind of institutional roles that have been forced on them. I thought of one more thing that I had thought of about Nimona being the agent of chaos and Blackheart being regulated by rules, and that's Blackheart is the man of science. He's the one that wants everything to make sense. Everything needs to be quantified and qualified. And then Nimona is pure magic. Nothing she does makes sense. She turns into a shark or a dragon or somebody. Goes, where did the extra mass come from? He's trying to figure out. There has to be some explanation, and there is no explanation for the things that Nimona can do. She's magic. She is not even constrained by the rules of reality. She can do anything she wants to, really. So,
like, if we're gonna look at that on a spectrum, I would want to add in Bitsmire.
Yeah.
Bitsmire or Blitzmire?
I think it's Blitzmire. That's
Blitzmire.
what I wrote
Okay,
down.
I think I wrote it down wrong. I was like, wait a second. Bitsmire pursuing science for the sake of science, almost like it's art, right?
Right.
To no higher calling other than for the sake of the knowledge. And then Ballister doing science for what he thinks is the greater good, right? To oppose the institution and to oppose these bad things. And then, of course, the institution doing science for control and for power and sort of leveraging science, leveraging all these things that could be used for good to cause harm. So I think that there is sort of there's a narrative thread in there about the morality of what you do with science and how your relationship with it, because it's power and it can be used to harm or help.
Yeah. And Melissa had a comment up, which I'm going to go back to. She said, there it is. As often is the case, good and evil depends on your perspective, and the truth is in the middle. I think that gets to a heart of what the book is about. Things are not as black and white as, it might first appear when you have hero, villain. Though all the roles of like who's on what side or anything are just blown out the window by that. I guess we could say the director is the ultimate villain. There's not a big redemptive arc happening there for the director, but everyone else is in that gray area in the middle. I mean, Nimona, although God, we love her and she's adorable, she has murdered a ton of people by the end of this thing. Henchmen and things like that. She's just chopping them down left and right.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things I thought was interesting about that is that, Ballister takes what he's doing very seriously, clearly, right? He takes even though it's, like you were saying, it's almost for show, there is a specific role that he's fulfilling.
Right.
His goal is to show that the institution is bad. And even on his own legs, he is able to sort of do specific things to say like, okay, this is how we're going to do this, right? And then he kind of has his Robin Hood moment of blowing the black wall out of the bank as his escape route, has the dual purpose of providing him an escape route, but also spreading wealth to the peasants, right? So this world that we exist in, the peasants are at the bottom. There's clearly some sort of institution that's sort of pumping out this guard class. And then there's a monarchy. And then there are people who are working in this institution, which I can only imagine is like a prime minister monarchy maybe situation, hand in hand, who knows. In this there's an agency as well. Don't forget about the agency.
I want more about the agency. We only just mentioned one time.
More agency. And then there's also the press, right? And there is a suppression of the press. So we've got the press releasing stories about the government, the institution using jade root, which is like, to use the Game of Thrones reference, it's like wildfire, right? It's this unstable element that's going to hurt everybody. And it's being done in the town limits, right? So it's kind of this nuclear threat. And so the press has the ability to, release that story, but then they also get, what is that word?
Propaganda.
They're getting suppressed, right? So I think it's really interesting that even though what Golden Loin is trying to do, which is be a hero, uphold peace, and what Blackheart is trying to do, which is expose the corruption within the institution, those are actually two real honest goals, but they're doing them behind this facade of hero and villain, right? And Nimona has fully bought into the facade. Yes. She doesn't understand the way things really work, which was one of the things that made me think that she's younger than she really is, because if she were more mature, or mentally mature, she might actually understand more about why Ballister does the things that he does. She thinks that the end road for him is that eventually he'll be crowned king.
Right.
But how does what he's doing have anything to do with whoever the king is, who, by the way, she eventually kills on, probably not even on purpose?
That was her first suggestion, actually, was murdering the king. That was when they were going over plans together. First idea she had was, don't kidnap him, just murder him, then you're the king. I'll raise the town. She was all out. I mean, and we see she could have easily done that. I mean, they could have gone right out of the gate. What happens in the book is largely a result of Ballister's ability to rein in Nimona from just going nuts and creating a massacre. I thought of another parallel that holds up to a certain point in the story, and that is Dr. Horrible from Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog.
The music from Dr. Horrible was playing in my head at some points when I was reading this.
Ballister is a bad guy in the same way that Dr. Horrible is a bad guy at the beginning. He thinks the institutions are corrupt. He's right. The good guy is actually kind of an a-hole. He's right. And so all the things, I mean, and Dr. Horrible ends on a more downer note where people die and then Dr. Horrible becomes the villain he was pretending to be up until that point that he thought he was, but he really wasn't. And in this story, we get more of a redemptive arc, but I thought there were some strong parallels between the idea of this kind of buying into the idea of villainy, because that's the way that you can stand up to institutions and state governments and things like that that are not behaving the way you think you should. And this is the label that you put on yourself when you don't agree with the system the way that it is.
Yeah, if Penny and Captain Hammer were the same character, I think that we would have if they were merged into one, so
Yeah,
that
that's
the so
golden
that
one. Yeah.
the person that was turning you into an incel because you're like, why don't you love me? And then I'm going to be a villain now. That's
Yeah, and it's so tragic is that you see that they're, well, let's not talk about Dr. Horrible. I could go off on that. And so yeah, I thought that was interesting. We had Melissa liked the moment when they were at the science fair and Nimona had changed into a little boy that was, so they would not look as obviously like Nimona and Blackheart. And he was carrying her around and she said, "You're really heavy." So she turned into a cat just to go up and be on his shoulder. And so that, they went from there. Nimona's, what do you think her objective was? Blackheart had a clear objective. She didn't really seem to have one at all. I mean, I guess tear everything down was kind of out there, but if he didn't want to do that, she seemed pretty willing to buy into that, at least for a while, although it was hard for her to control herself. So what do you think her ultimate objective was?
I think that she was looking for somebody like-minded.
Yeah,
She's definitely in the mindset of, burn it all down. If she doesn't actually know Blackheart and his backstory,
right,
it looks like they're ideologically aligned.
right,
So she would be able to easily walk into his place, show him that she could be useful, and then the two of them, arm in arm, would tear the system down.
right,
She doesn't have a clear. I don't think the character had a clear idea of what that looked like, other than kill the king,
yeah,
rob the bank, hurt people, right? And then
right,
that's kind of that saying, hurt people, hurt people. For as much suffering as she endured herself, she doesn't seem to understand the harm that she inflicts on other people.
yeah,
Because even though she says, well, they're just a henchman or they're just this, she kind of finds a way to dehumanize other people in a way that she would not appreciate happening to herself. And I think that just shows, kind of is in that realm of the backstory
right,
of, well, what did she experience, right? Because, experiencing harm at the hand of scientists. Now she doesn't trust science,
right,
experiencing harm at the hand of peasants. Well, now she wouldn't care if she burned the city down because those are all the same
right,
group of people who have harmed her, right? She's been abused by a system, so the whole system has
right.
to go.
She doesn't have an abstract idea of the value of human life. It's
Hmm.
interpersonal relationships. If she knows the person personally and likes them personally, they're a real person. But beyond that, I don't think she has a big conception that anybody else has intrinsic value in any way, shape, or form. She would have to meet everyone in the village and, personally and chat with them for a while for her to care whether they lived or died, because she has not that emotional maturity level that people that don't are beyond her personal experience are not really real. It can be turned into these kind of cartoon dehumanized characters that she doesn't care whether they live or die. I just think that Blackheart and her are so similar. It's just that she had a pain that was a several magnitudes greater than what Blackheart experienced. As a child, taken away from parents, tortured, evidently experimented on multiple times by different people that she thought she could trust, that were going to, do something for her. We don't get the full backstory, which we've mentioned multiple times. And I think that's, some things are just better left unexplained. I always thought they
Yeah.
never should have explained how Wolverine got the freaking adamantium in his bones. I thought the story was better when it was just a mystery. We knew he had been experimented on, but who knows? Now we have it just laid out. They've told the story like 8 times now.
I was like, but now that it's been told 8 times, what's the real story?
Oh,
He
that's
went
true.
back and forward in time. So
Yeah, they can always. That's the great thing about these connected universes, at least in the comics. They just blow them up and then say everything's different, or they do it again. And they pulled that trick off a few times. So I bet they
you want to know how I got this adamantium core?
But yeah, I do think it's again you're going right back to it that comparable to the Joker, Agent of Chaos. Don't really know where they came from. Maybe that's not the most important part of it. We know basic things. They were hurt. They're damaged goods. Something bad happened, and she is at a point where she values friendship. I do think that by the end of it, maybe she has learned from Ballister that there are good people in the world, that not everything is completely black and white. I hope so. Otherwise, there's going to be some kingdom next door that's going to get burnt to the ground when
Right.
Nimona goes off again.
I think almost more the important thing for her to have learned was something that actually came up in, I think, the second chapter, which is that Golden Loin hurt Ballister in a life-changing way, and
Right.
he wouldn't hurt Golden Loin back.
Right.
And so it's kind of like you were saying, the story is about forgiveness, because it doesn't matter. Like it's the biggest way you can turn the other cheek, right? He blasted your arm off, and what you have perceived was a moment of jealousy,
Right.
like was it worth it? And now you're living these completely separate paths. But regardless of all this shared history and like the betrayal, that they were a couple,
Right.
for God knows how long, because you don't,
if you read the back, all the way in the back of the book, there's some things showing them growing up as like teens or tweens together. So they've been together for a long time,
right? And that's a huge betrayal. And so what I would hope Nimona took away from this, but what I think her learning wouldn't necessarily be strictly from Ballister's worldview, but from seeing the way that he was able to forgive Golden Loin and live alongside him,
right,
despite everything.
And again, that whole power forgiveness thing. Golden Loin's apologizing for something that we're not sure that he did. I think the reader is, and the Golden Loin. But the point is, Golden Loin thinks that he did something, even if it was by accident. And Blackheart is positive Golden Loin did something. But even if, as I suspect, Golden Loin is not the one who pushed the button there to zap Ballister, he was cheating. He was perfectly willing to take the juiced up lance to cheat, to win, to beat his best friend, because he would blindly follow the rules of the institution. He had subverted his own sense of morality and right and wrong to the rules that were given to him by this institution, put his faith there. And there's that, that's one of the messages I think we've touched on, is that Stevenson's trying to get across, is putting all your faith into institutions is not a good idea. They let you down. They're not always right. So they should be questioned, and perhaps burned down by a giant fire-breathing dragon. So,
which can also shoot spikes.
Man, what can't Nimona do?
I'm not clear. I think the thing with Golden Loin is we're coming, because the story just starts, right? We're dropped in. Right. There's hardly any introduction. So we're coming at him at a point where he, the hero, is being asked to murder a child. Right. That's kind of the first place the Institute goes, where they're like, you need to get rid of her. Okay, just kidding, you need to kill her, right? So that's for some reason not a moment where he says, well, I'm a hero, I can no longer do this. He just sticks around. He takes the next piece of armor. He's giving himself away piece by piece by piece. I think he did push the button.
I
think he took that. I think he took the lance, the juiced up lance, as we're calling it. And I think that he knew that he had a directive. And I think that's part of being a good soldier is doing what you're told. And it's not always a bad thing to be a good soldier, right? And so if he's been, for lack of a better term, indoctrinated into a certain way of thinking, and he thinks that Ballister thinks the same way that he does, then really he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything to apologize for, right?
Yeah, it's that. Yeah, I do think that it was that whole idea of the danger of institutional think and of completely giving up moral responsibility for your own actions when it's in the service of a cause. And you're right. I mean, the Neil Simon play Biloxi Blues actually gets into this, where the drill sergeant, played by Christopher Walken in the movie, is breaking them all down in order to build them up together as a unit. And to a certain extent, the Neil Simon proxy, played by Ferris Bueller there, and I forget what his name is in the play, but his other friend, who is this Jewish intellectual who's just really not cut out to be a soldier, not only from the physical standpoint, but because he wasn't willing to let himself be peeled away like that in order to be built back up into a unit. He didn't see the reason for what he saw as dehumanization, and that giving up his intellect to for the group think. But the drill sergeant says, "I'm trying to keep these boys alive." That's his. You have to. They're fighting the enemy, and so soldiers are like that. They have to do things. They have to be ready to do whatever they're told, and they pray to God that the higher ups are telling them to do good things. That's just what you sign up for.
Yeah.
I did want to bring up, because I know we're probably getting to the end. Yeah, we're pretty
you're
close.
Kidding me?
No, it's.
Oh wow.
This is a good one. This is one of my favorite ones to read the entire time. I'm not. It's all relative. There have been other books that I've really loved, but this one was good. Was that they avoided what I'm called the Dark Phoenix trope. I can't remember if I was talking to you about that or if it was someone else. The idea that
she's just like then it explodes at the end.
Well, this thing where women in fiction, and particularly in comics, but also in science fiction movies and stuff, become these godlike beings, but then they're too ruled by their emotions to handle the power, and they have to then eventually be struck down. It's something that's happened multiple times. Nimona is exactly like that. I mean, in a different story, Nimona would have been, as Blackheart found out how powerful and how uncontrollable she is, it would have been, she's too dangerous to live, and would have used the device to kill her, and it would have been a tragic story and everything else. This was something where they allowed the woman to, the female character, to grow into her power, reveal it slowly, and at no point was it considered that she wasn't deserving of the power that she had, that it had to be taken from her, controlled somehow, or that she had to be destroyed. None of those really ever entered Blackheart's mind. He was just trying to save her from herself a little bit, save the people around him, and hopefully make everything right again. He wasn't doing those type of things. We didn't fall into that trap that women can only be powerful if they are controlled by a man in some fashion, which is, I love Chris Claremont, and Dark Phoenix story is great, but when you see it like over and over and over again, you get a little tired of that idea.
I mean, I think I totally understand what you're saying. That's a really good note. Because she is ruled by her emotion. She is incredibly powerful, but it's not framed as a moral solution for Blackheart, who's kind of our protagonist, to engage in. That's not his way of thinking, and it's shown that way of thinking is actually wrong. Right. So it's a really good subversion of that trope. I almost called her at the very beginning. I said, "Is this a manic pixie sidekick?"
Yeah,
because she, from the beginning, she's so helpful. She's so smart. She's so good at fighting, and she's really upbeat. And she seemed to just kind of appear out of nowhere to make Ballister's life better. And of course, she turns out to be so much more than than he can handle.
She was. Oh, I had some brilliant idea, and I was sitting on it, and I don't know what it was. Just trust me. I had some insight that you would not have believed. It was great.
Oh my God, I can't believe that.
But I just it was a really, really enjoyable book. I do think we've nailed the kind of thrust of it, that we can't trust institutions. We can't trust our own memories of things. I think there was a little bit of that. We can't. The only thing that came out in the end, as they're standing in the rubble of what used to be everything, is that you could trust friendship. The friendship between Ballister and Nimona, and the friendship between Ballister and Goldenloin. Well, friendship. Those were like, I just thought, walking away from it, those are the two true axioms that I can walk away with. Those things were real. Everything else, I think, is debatable, except for those two. And the director's evil and horrible, and I'm not sad if she died. But those are I'll give you three things. But I felt like we did have everybody living in the gray a little bit. I remember what I was going to say. Ballister, you said yes, he wouldn't kill Nimona because it was, kind of a realpolitik. It was just the kind of thing that needed to happen to achieve a greater good. He was perfectly willing to poison villagers in order to try to uncover this plot from that the institution was going into. They were sitting on the stockpile of poison. He wanted to uncover that, and his solution was to poison random people so that the rumor that they had this stockpile was believable. That's not exactly like Dudley Do-Right good guy behavior there. There might have been another way to get that across. So he didn't have completely clean hands here either. Would be my take on it. Although he didn't want to kill.
I don't think that there was no consequences for that. And I think of everything that he did, he personally that he could control, not like bringing Nimona with him and then she ends up killing people because he can't control her.
Right.
I think that was probably the most questionable thing that he did.
Yeah.
But you do see that it takes a big toll out of him emotionally once he finds out that somebody died. He doesn't know if they died from his poisoning. That's not clear.
Right.
But, you can't just go around poisoning people and thinking everybody's going to be okay.
Yeah. He faced a consequence from that, thinking that he could get away with kind of doing something a little wrong to achieve a greater good. The Machiavellian side, the ends justify the means. He thought, I can do this and I can poison them just enough that everyone will be curious and investigate, and they'll find the stockpile and it will uncover the institution's evil doings. And he ended up accidentally killing someone. And yeah, we saw that there was a consequence to going down that path, and maybe that's part of why he resisted it so hard later, beyond the personal relationship he had established with Nimona, is that he knew that when you start making those type of decisions that it's easy to compromise yourself really quickly.
Yeah, the thought that he might have killed somebody weighs on him heavily, and then he actually does kill somebody later on to protect Nimona.
Right.
And that weighs on him even heavier.
Yeah. Oh, and he has to shoot Nimona at one point just to stop the rampage and stuff, and
he's not cut out for violence.
No, he's not. He does not like any of it. Not that kind of violence. Violence against the institution's fine. Violence against people and friends and animals and things. Yeah, I don't think he is. So yeah, I did think it didn't subvert the idea of there being a hero or something, or I'm trying to think of it subverts the whole idea that the world can be broken down into this heroes and villains. Everybody is dragged at least into the gray in this thing at different points in the story. Almost everyone is a hero, and almost everyone could be considered the villain. Of our three primary characters, Golden Loin, Blackheart, and Nimona, all three of them at different times. Golden Loin takes the longest to get dragged to the side of being a hero because he thinks he's being a hero already, and it takes a while for him to realize that he's not. And then once he fully understands that, then he kind of flips sides and comes over towards the light. But Blackheart does some questionable things, and then even though we're seeing it from his point of view, and Nimona again all over the map, murdering people left and right.
I mean, I think it's an absolutely gorgeous paradox at the end. Amazing writing, that the thing that really brings Golden Loin into the role of a hero is what puts him diametrically opposed to Ballister.
Right.
Because Golden Loin has, lost his rank. He's on the outs of the institution, and with no backing, he goes to face a dragon alone to save people's lives. Yeah. And he sees that as his duty, and it's a moment of sacrifice, right? Right. Where he knows he's going to his death, but he has to do it anyway because that's how that's what he needs to do. But of course, we don't want that because we love the dragon.
We love the dragon. We don't want either of them to die by that point. We're with Ballister at that point. We want everybody to walk away from this thing and trying to figure out how we can make that happen. We have used up our full hour. I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments at this point, but we kind of talked out the time. I think that is a testament to how good this book is. I got into Noelle Stevenson through Lumberjanes, which I picked up because I thought it looked like a cute series I could recommend on there. And it was supposed to be a 6-issue miniseries, and of course it has gone on to be just an ongoing title that'll never end. And it is also getting turned into a TV show. There was a live action movie that was going to come out, but that was at 20th Century Fox as well. And I think when Disney picked them up, that kind of got shuffled to the side, and now it's something else is happening now, I think. So because they canceled 20th Century Fox's slate at that point to start fresh. So so Noelle Stevenson, fantastic creator, wonderful human being. I do think, even looking at that top to bottom proxy, that looks a lot like Noelle Stevenson to me. So I'm going to say that I think in some capacity that's a proxy for her. Maybe she didn't see herself represented on the page very much, and that was a way to get that kind of representation out there. Nimona is just a fantastic book. I think, you could probably read this down to what do you think? Like 4th or 5th grade or something like that. Wherever the level is where you can wrap your head around that killing people is bad, and kind of process that.
Yeah, fourth of grade is great. I think that's about the time when I read The Hobbit. So yeah, I think that would be a great addition to understanding dragons in End Your Life.
We have dragons in this one too, so maybe fourth or fifth grade. I'm hoping that the movie does well and gets the word out there, and then I have this vague hope that it'll get people to read the book, because it's always better to read the book first. And if we've learned anything from the whole MCU Avengers, popularity, is that does not translate to people going to buy the comic books in any way, shape, or form. The comic books are, in their current format, are kind of on the ropes, and I would like to see them continue, and because I think they're a creative gold mine. I love the medium of comics, and I think that it's a medium where someone who's a storyteller can tell any story they want to without worrying about special effects budget or anything else. You can get it done, and I would hate to lose that. We've gotten so many imaginative stories. It's using more and more. Hollywood's picking the brains there, and I'm hoping that they figure out a way to put a stick underneath comics and prop them up so that these creators can keep doing the stuff that they're doing, because I think it's incredibly valuable, good work on its own, not just as fodder for Hollywood plots. I'll just on a diatribe.
I think my diatribe on this topic, I know we're over time, I apologize, but I think that Noelle Stevenson and this story could be a great cautionary tale to gatekeepers who tell you not to do things, to tell you not to pursue things, to tell you, or anyone who says that there's one way to accomplish something. There is no one way to accomplish something. And so for people who are trying to get into animation, who are trying to get into making comics, just do it.
Yeah.
And there is no one path. There is no one way to do it.
To your point, it started out as a school project. It wasn't for anything other than to, turn in so that you got a good grade in the class. She got positive feedback there, turned it into a web comic where you're in complete control of your own medium. You can publish it yourself. You don't have to pitch it to a bunch of people. And she developed it there and got her following. And then she got picked up by a publisher. And, now Noelle Stevenson's pretty hot stuff. She's making television shows for Netflix. She's got many of her properties are getting turned into other TV shows and movies and things like that. So yeah, we have a lot of tools now that weren't available to generations before to do your own thing. And if you go into it trying to accomplish what you want to accomplish, not expecting that you're going to get rich and famous, I think that's probably a better strategy. But there is a path there that's completely outside. If she'd taken this to like Marvel or DC, nothing would have happened. They never would have even looked at it. So exactly. Too far outside of their realm. We have like Boom now and stuff that I think would, but part of the reason Boom would look at it is because it's a lot like Lumberjanes, which she also created. So so okay, well we gotta go. Oh, I lost an earpiece. So Vivian, thank you so much for stopping by. I really enjoyed this. Oh, I wanted to bring up one thing. We have a group that's a book club group that I created that nobody's doing anything in, so it's attached to the Heroic Growth page. You can check that out. And we actually this time streamed on both YouTube and Periscope because I wanted to see if it would work. And so if that worked, then we're going to do it again next time, and maybe I'll even tell people next time. So we'll check that out later. All right. Thanks, everybody. If you have more comments or questions, just leave them in the comments, and we will talk to you guys in a month. We have to pick a book. I haven't picked a book. It's your turn. You're up, actually, I think. So we can talk about that offline. You don't have to do it now.
Okay. I was looking at the bookshelf like, oh,
no. No, I'd rather you put some time in. I have ideas, but I picked the last one, so I thought we could flip back and forth. So, Vivian, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for listening and participating in the conversation, and we will see you in a month. Bye.
Bye.